well. This way, this recording will be available on our Fresno State YouTube page, the Career Development Center's YouTube page.
They can put it on my resume.
Yeah, exactly. Alrighty, and Chris, since you decided to unmute, you're up next.
Okay. Yeah, so my name is Chris Beck. I'm an academic counselor in the College of Health and Human Services Advising Center. So I'm one of the 5 academic counselors for the entire college, including kinesiology. So that's a coincidence. Anastasia was also the one who onboarded me. So she made me swear an oath to the state of California. So for fun. But my bachelor's originally was in history and Chicano studies with a minor in communication. My original plan, which I'll talk about a little bit later, was to teach high school history, and that didn't pan out clearly. So I went into a master's program in student affairs and college counseling, and then I ended up here through a mixture of luck, slapstick humor, and persistence, I guess. I don't know. And so in our office, we do advising for the 6 academic college or academic departments within CHHS. And then we also do nursing admissions. So that's my other title, is admissions coordinator. And I specifically supervise our interns as well.
Thank you very much, Chris. Alrighty, next up, Imelda.
All right. So my name is Imelda Dudley, and I am the coordinator of internships and professional experiences for the Jordan College of Agricultural Sciences and Technology. And I am a 2-time alumni from Fresno State. I got my undergraduate degree in family and consumer science. I got a minor in criminology and a certificate in victim services. And then I went on and I got my master's in higher education, administration, and leadership. And, what I do for the College of Ag is I pretty much coordinate all internships, and I serve as a career counselor for our 6 academic departments.
Thank you very much, Imelda. Moral.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Moral Kismetian. I'm with the Division of Research and Graduate Studies. I'm a research and grants administrator with our Research and Sponsor Programs Office. I currently serve faculty and staff from Jordan College of Ag, Laos College of Engineering, President's Office, the Provost's Office, the Richter Center, and Office of Community and Economic Development. I am also a dual alumni. I have a bachelor's degree in political science from Fresno State and a master's in public administration. And I'm also a certified research administrator.
Thank you, Moral. Can you tell us a little bit about what that looks like? What you,
so that looks like it's a very different thing than most of my colleagues here that are in either human resources or academic counselors or work with internships and job placements and so on. I work with faculty predominantly for grants and contract negotiations. So all faculty submissions and contract submissions for our university goes through me for those specific colleges and units. So I review all of the submissions and certify for the university. And if indeed they are awarded, I will negotiate with the federal partners or state partners. I will also onboard all private funding that comes through if it has any contractual deliverables allowed. I will do human subject reviews, training in those aspects, will attend meetings and conferences for grant opportunities, and also develop proposals for faculty if needed to bring about new support and services that you would need in different units.
Thank you, Moral. Alexis.
Well, hello, everybody. My name is Alexis, Alexis Duncil. I was formerly Alexis Ford. I just got married this past year. So my email says Alexis Ford, but I'm now Alexis Duncil. And I'm not yet changed all the information through HR. So don't get mad, please. I'm getting there. I got to change all my other stuff. But my formal title, and it's quite a mouthful, so bear with me, is the Public Relations and Communications Coordinator at the Water, Energy, and Technology Center. We go by WET Center. We use a lot of acronyms in our small little nonprofit based on campus. And some of the work, well, actually, I graduated in 2019 with a Bachelor's of Science in Ag Communications with an emphasis in public relations. So I'm really trying to, to cover everything that I do, which is a lot. At least with marketing, it can kind of span from press releases all the way down to graphic design, videos. So really the things that I get to work with my team with are primarily focused in communications marketing, social media marketing, and then media management. So we do a lot of press releases about some of the companies that go through our programs. So that's just a little bit about me.
Thank you very much, Alexis. And then lastly, joining us is Keela Reyes. We had some technical difficulties, but Keela, we are all just introducing ourselves. So if you can get us your name, the Fresno State degrees that you earned, your current title, and then just a little bit about what you do in your job. Oh, let's see here. I think I have to unmute her. There we go.
Perfect. So hi, everyone. I apologize. I had some technical difficulties joining in, but my name is Kayla. I work as an admissions specialist under the admissions and recruitment office. I'm currently working with students who are first-time freshmen, so who are in high school right now and who are wanting to apply to the institution. And then I also work with students who are returning. So students who were previously like disqualified or on probation, or were still like on good standing and decided to leave, and now they're trying to come back into the university. So I also work with that population. So I work on admitting students along with doing residency. And then I also do a lot of the dual enrollment. So there's a lot that goes on in admissions, but mostly just helping students apply and get into the institution.
And then what degrees from Fresno State did you earn?
Yeah, so I graduated in 2019 with a bachelor's in communicative disorders and speech language pathology, and I am now in grad school for, I'm pursuing a master's in counseling and student affairs and college counseling. So I should be done, hopefully crossing my fingers this spring if everything goes right.
Completely feel you there. Alrighty, thank you everybody for introducing yourselves and giving us a little bit about what you do. We are going to go a little bit more in detail now. So we'd have 3 questions prepared that we just kind of want to hear from everyone, what your experiences were like. And then at the end of this webinar, we will have an open Q&A session for any participants who have questions that were not answered. So the first question that we want to discuss here is, what made you decide to work in higher education, and what path did you take to get here? And we're going to go kind of in reverse order now. So Kayla, you're going to start us off. And I think you should be able to unmute yourself, but just in case you can't. Okay, sorry. Let me do that.
Okay. Perfect. So if you can repeat your questions again. So one, what made you want to go into higher education? What was the second one?
And then what path did you take to get here? What classes did you take, or what influences made you decide to work in higher education?
Okay, perfect. So for me, what made me want to go into higher education specifically was during my undergrad. I was really involved in my local community college and my university. I often worked as a student assistant for a vast majority of different departments. So I felt like I always knew I wanted to do something, but I didn't know that you could pursue a master's degree in it. Like many students that we serve here at Fresno State, I was kind of first generation. You know, sometimes a lack of knowledge or resources fuel your purpose of wanting to pursue something like that. So I felt like a lot of students that I was helping out were kind of in my shoes. So I knew that it was something that I wanted to always go into. I just didn't know there was a specific master's degree for it until one of my previous bosses went ahead and let me know. And yeah, so I had initially finished all of my requisites for speech pathology and decided to take on an extra semester of the prereq courses because I knew this was something that I really wanted to pursue. And yeah, so that person helped me out with my application process and everything and pursuing higher education. And yeah, so that's kind of how I got my way in. Or wanting to pursue it.
Thank you very much. All righty, next up, Alexis.
So I'm very similar to I think a lot of people in this room. I started off undergraduate. I was the first in my family to go straight to a CSU. So I was also overwhelmed and kind of by myself and didn't really have the resources, but I knew that part of the way to kind of excel not only in your undergraduate degree, but also post-graduation and having that network is just by getting in different departments as a student assistant. I held a myriad of different positions spanning from marketing to counseling in many ways. So I also worked in our academic advising center at the Jordan College with Imelda at one point. So there really was a lot of opportunity as an undergraduate student. And so my reason into going into staying in higher education was to really allow for those opportunities that were given to myself for other students. So for me, because I work in marketing, having that experience as a student was incredibly important into getting the job that I currently have. So I wanted to be able to foster, again, that hands-on learning for students with my position. And so I'm very, very lucky to have 3 student assistants that are on our team here at the Wet Center. And they all span from different majors. I have some Craig School of Business folks, and I also have some MCJ folks as well. And so for me, the ability to just teach what I know, but also offer those experience to students is one of the main reasons that I kind of dove into higher education and working for higher education.
Thank you very much, Alexis. Maral.
For me, it was a bit unusual because I started actually my undergraduate career at San Francisco State with an international relations major. And I stopped attending school late junior year. But during that time, I was hired as a student assistant. I was working with these soft centers, Mary Wright Edelman Institute for Children and Families, and so on. And I started seeing policy work turn into grants work and how someone would apply for a grant and what would that take and how you manage projects that are funded with grants. So I did almost the reverse that I do now, where I learned how to coordinate projects, manage projects. And I then got married and moved down to Central Valley. And at that time, I decided that I want to stay within the grants world. This is what I wanted to do. So higher education made sense because most research administrators are hired through universities. So there was an opening at the Office of Research and Sponsor Programs here as an administrative support person. I got hired, and very quickly my superiors and leaders and the team they wanted me to go back to school, which at Fresno State, I think it's highly encouraged, and professional development is something that we value, and we want to encourage all of us to move forward in our careers. So then I went and got my bachelor's in political science and decided that I really want to stay in this path. And research administration then became, no, I think child wakes up one day and says, I want to be a research administrator when I grow up. But it made key, like the resolute in my mind was just, okay, I want to do this now. And I want to work with faculty and support students and faculty because all the grants we onboard impact student success, every manner and shape you can think of. So then I said, okay, I want to get my master's in public administration. Once that happened, along those lines, nationally, you can get certified as a research administrator. So I had to take a national exam, 4-hour exam, and I got certified. So that path may have not been usual because I stopped going to school and came back. Now I have 2 kids, and it was a bit difficult. But I think for me, higher education and the value of that support that I received from my faculty and leaders around me kept me going. So I find it very fulfilling to be in this environment where day in, day out, I can support students, faculty, and staff.
Thank you very much, Maral. Imelda.
Well, how I ended up here in higher ed is it's just honestly, I feel like just life happened and then now I'm here. So like I mentioned earlier, I have a minor in criminology and a certificate in victim services because I wanted to be a probation officer and I was majoring in criminology. And the reason why I was following that career was because I grew up in a really like rough area with a lot of troubled youth. A lot of my friends didn't end up, being successful. And so I thought I wanted to help people, young people. And so, but then my second year in college, I had a daughter and that kind of changed my mindset. And I started taking child development classes because why not, right? I'm a mom and I don't know how to do this, so I might as well take some classes to help me be a better parent. And then I did an internship at Madera County Child Protective Services, and I was working with the troubled youth that were in the system, and I was helping them emancipate out of the foster care system. And after doing that for about a year, I realized, gosh, it was just really emotionally draining. And I still wanted to help people, but I just knew that I couldn't do that as a lifelong career. So I reached out to my old high school counselor and I asked, like, can I do an internship at the high school? She said yes. I did an internship at my old high school. And then I realized, gosh, I don't really like working with high school students. So then I did an internship at Fresno State with the Educational Opportunity Program. And then I realized I really enjoyed working with adult students. And I also worked as a peer counselor for the College Assistance Migrant Program, which I was a part of. So working with EOP and working with the CAMP program really helped me realize that I wanted to be like my mentors, like my counselors, and I still, could help young people and, help redirect them towards their career goals. And so that's EOP is how I got my foot in the door at Fresno State. I've worked for EOP as a student assistant. I worked for the University Advising Center as a peer counselor. I worked for the College Assistance Migrant Program, and those are all student part-time positions. And then I was able to move into a full-time job for a grant-funded program back in 2010. And so I worked as a academic counselor for that program. And gosh, I've worked in several offices. I've been on campus for over 10 years. So I've moved around quite a bit, but I've really enjoyed all of my experiences in higher education. And I feel like one experience has led to another. And I've been really fortunate to have great mentors on this campus and great colleagues that have encouraged me, to apply to different opportunities. So that's kind of how I ended up here, guys. Did I answer the question, Tyler? Did I miss anything?
No, you got it. And I think
Okay.
I can definitely empathize with not wanting to work with high school students. So I completely understand that experience there. Chris.
Oh, these segues into my story just keep getting better and better because as I mentioned, I was a history major. I tell everybody that, I feel like, but it's important for me and the students I work with because I work primarily with nursing students, and so we deal with a lot of questions about what can I do if I'm not admissible to a nursing program, or I've kind of moved away. And so I've always really appreciated how my story kind of represents that, because my dad actually did go through Fresno State back in the 90s. He dropped out and then returned and got his teaching credential, and he's taught in Fresno Unified for about 20 years now or so. So like a lot of students who enter higher education, I wanted to be like my dad, and I wanted to be a history teacher in high school because I thought it would be cool to, mess with the kids and educate young minds and all that fun stuff. And then I realized I'm not really good with children. More to the point, because my dad's a teacher, I was very aware of how the K-12 system was especially since it was in a really tumultuous time where, he wasn't having a great time and yada, yada, yada. At the same time, I started in 2014. I got hired with Dog Days on campus in 2015 on a whim. That's where I met Alexis and later met Kayla. And through that, I've met pretty much everybody here too. So I worked with orientation. And then from there, I met an academic counselor who was in UAC at the time named Ross Witten. He hired me at the College of Social Sciences Advising Center when that opened, when Fresno State moved to the College Advising Center. I started as a student assistant. Then I became a peer mentor. Eventually, I became a graduate advisor there, moved to the School of Business, and then got hired out of my grad program into CHHS while also being involved in student involvement, campus committees, undergraduate curriculum, GE committee, a lot of fun stuff. But that's all to say that when I got into my grad program, I always had that sense of imposter syndrome, not really feeling like I fit in because, we would be in counseling 200, intro to counseling. They would assume that you had a baseline foundation because pretty much everybody there was some sort of psych major is what I assumed. Turns out they weren't. But when they would talk about things, I was like, I haven't remembered this stuff since I was in AP psychology in high school. And so I felt really out of place. And it took a long time for me to see how my major and my background could be relevant. I mean, in short, if you think about it, teaching and counseling, not too different. I'm still educating, I'm still working with people. It's just more of a lateral change. And then I was able to see that what in career counseling they call cross-disciplinary skills. History is good at retaining information, being able to condense and simplify complex terms into simple things. So when you take something as complicated as general education or degree requirements, it's helpful. And then I personally ended up adding my Chicano studies degree because I knew it would be helpful with the population we work with, but I'm actually also Hispanic, even though I don't go outside. So that was also a dual way for me to be able to recapture some of that lost culture I had, because my mom came over when she was 4 and she was bullied by a lot of people, pulled out a remedial class or pulled in remedial English classes, never wanted me and my brother to be labeled. So she kind of kept us, she Americanized us, which is a common story for a lot of people. And so when I work with students a lot, that's a thing I really try to encourage is, be intentional, but also realize that, I worked with a student the other day who was going same thing from SLP to counseling. It wasn't Kayla. But we had the same conversation, right? You haven't wasted 4 years. You've gained skills. You've been a leader. And so, if anything on there, I guess that's that's how I ended up here. I never planned to work in advising. I didn't even know it existed when I got into college. And then it just kind of happened like it does for most people. But yeah.
Thank you, Chris. And I think we're definitely seeing a lot of commonalities between all of our experiences. And to round us off, Anastasia.
Well, at least most of you guys have a background where your degree kind of fit into where you're working now. I started off as an exercise science major in kinesiology, which has nothing to do with being in HR in the business world. So what happened was when I was getting my degree here at Fresno State, I actually got accepted at Cal Baptist University to get my master's in athletic training. That is what I was going to be. I had all my clinical hours and, well, life took a turn and I actually got engaged and was going to get married. So as a student assistant here, I had to figure out where I was going to go from then. Backing up a couple years from that, I actually got hired in the professional development and wellness program. So under Kathleen Scott, Katie Williamson, and Eloisa, they kind of run all of the trainings and wellness and activity classes. So I thought that would be a great way for me to get my foot in the door, get some ideas of, oh, if I wanted to go into exercise science or athletic training, how can I run programs? How do I feel about being in public spaces? And pretty much just taking over programs and creating stuff off on the fly. That turned out to be the best way of starting my career was, being a student assistant. I think we've all had that experience here because I wouldn't have pictured myself here in higher education as well. I helped coordinated
huge events. So one of the events is Star Day, which is a staff training and recognition program. I did that as a student, which was handling 2,000 plus people in an event, working in public spaces, talking to people, handling volunteers to help get this program and this day going. So what happened is when I graduated, I got accepted to this university and I was going to move down to the Los Angeles or Riverside area. My life was set. I was ready to go. You know, I got engaged and I didn't know what I was going to do because we had to decide where we were going to live. Can I run off of student loans without working? So it was during my summer break after I graduated that Kathleen Scott, my director or the director of professional development and wellness, called me. She's like, hey, there's this job that's opening up in HR. You know, it's a basic entry staff level position. You know, just go take a look at it and apply. And here I am on summer break. Mind you, I'm camping, by the way, in the middle of the woods. I have my iPad. I run to the nearest town, try to find some Wi-Fi, and I apply for my first job on campus off of my iPad. And it's kind of crazy because I wouldn't have even known about this position because the deadline was at midnight. So I had my aunt, my cousin helping me write a resume, helping me write a cover letter because, you know, I'm a graduate student. I'm graduated. How did I know how to write a cover letter to work in higher education? So it ended up working out that I got the interview after applying. I had to come in for a second interview, which was even more nerve-wracking because I had to meet with the director of HR, not just the basic level, you know, people I'm going to be working with. I had to wait a little bit and I got the call saying, hey, you're accepted. Like, we want you in our office. Who knew that from then a kines major, changing life. I had my plans laid out, ended up as a staff member at HR. It really helped out working here at Fresno State, having a basic knowledge of the campus. If you told me 6 years ago when I was starting that I would be here, I wouldn't have believed you. You know, life changes, things happen. But knowing that I had those people along the way, having the director, having Katie and Kathleen tell me like, hey, you're really good at talking to people, doing trainings, you know, being out there in the public eye, you know, if they didn't recognize that, I wouldn't have pursued my dream and started taking over orientations or running trainings here on campus. So I've never regretted that day applying to this job in the middle of the woods. So
thank you very much for sharing your story, Anastasia. And thank you everyone for sharing kind of the road that got you to where you are today. Definitely, we have some common experiences across all of us. I think pretty much all of us worked in some sort of student position in some way, shape, or form. But I really hope that the participants also kind of see that there's no one typical way to get into these jobs. Yes, you know, working on campus, it's a great way to get your foot in the door as a student, but as so many of our participants have said, life happens. And there is no one right perfect track to start working in higher education. So I hope that's an encouraging factor for our participants. So moving on to the next question, we kind of talked about this peppered in all over the place. So the question is, what are the benefits to working in higher education versus working in other areas of similar to your skill sets? And so we're going to go back around again, and Anastasia, will have you start us off.
Right. So benefits to working in higher education. Again, I'm just speaking for myself here at Fresno State. I don't have other experience outside of Fresno State in higher education. What I really love about it is that you get to see the campus life. You get to be on the campus with the students, feel their energy, and feel what's going on and being involved. There's so many opportunities here, volunteering, being a student assistant, or just being here on campus. That's, again, what I've missed during these last 2 years during COVID. I have not left campus. I'm one of those few that did not get to work from home. Our door was always open. So going back pre-COVID to now, I miss the students. I miss seeing everyone on campus. It's amazing just to see students grow. You get to find what you want to do, find your niche. Also, if you are working in higher education, I mean, as an HR staff person, we get weekends off. We get every holiday off. I mean, we get random days, middle of the weeks off because it's Cesar Chavez Day, it's President's Day. Private areas don't get that. So, but also I love working here because, again, we get to hire students who are in the areas that we are in. So I'm giving the same experience that I was given when I worked here. And it's great to see them grow. They're the backbone of our universities, our students and our student assistants. So that's one of the main reasons.
Thank you, Anastasia. Chris.
I was struggling earlier because I always joke that higher ed's a pyramid scheme. You just got to keep drawing people in. No, but edit that out, please. No, it's nothing new, but for me, the benefit is really just the students. And I mean, yes, we get, we don't have to work weekends, we get great benefits, all that stuff, specifically in CSU and stuff like that. I get this awesome office. There's cats outside. I get to pet them sometimes and they'll get yelled at. But one of the things I really appreciate compared to high school specifically is, if everybody here made the conscious choice one way or another to be here. And by that, I mean the students primarily, whether, K-12, you got to go legally, right? If you don't go, you get SARBed, your parents get jailed. But here, everybody made the decision that they want to better themselves. And it really makes a difference. It's weird for me to say, because I usually consider myself a pessimist, but I've become a relentless optimist in regards to students. And it's always so endearing, especially since I work with so many different groups of students. I've been a part of COS, Arts and Humanities, Kremen, or in Kremen, and I've worked in business, COS, and CHHS. So all but 2 of the colleges I've been in. Now, obviously, I'm biased. I'm going to say that CHHS is the best students, of course, because if not, my boss will fire me. But I work specifically again with nurses, social workers, public health employees, people who want to be physical therapists or athletic trainers or doctors. And so there's a certain level of passion, you say, and it's really like heartwarming. I'm not that old, but it's good to know that the next generation is, doing good stuff. And then, like Anastasia said, I have the privilege of supervising our graduate interns. Kayla was one of them. Sorry to out you, Kayla. So getting to see their growth and getting this, work one-on-one so closely with students, and then, even for the general students team, having a student who comes back every semester, it warms your heart. So it's a really good population, and you can really feel the altruism here.
Thank you very much, Chris. Imelda.
So pretty much everything that Chris just said, and also I just feel like the campus energy is awesome. I love working in higher education because of the Bulldog pride, and because I love working with students that want to be here, and all they need is just a little bit more guidance to, either help them find like an internship or find their dream job. And so I also, part of my job is working with industry too. So it's really rewarding for me to work with the agriculture industry because we have a really strong connection in our college to our industry. And there's a lot of pride in that too, because of where we're geographically located, and our little Central Valley feeds the world. And that is something, to be really proud of. And so I think that's really, the Bulldog pride and being able to work with our industry and being able to help our students, accomplish their goals, personal goals and academic goals, career goals, is just really, what keeps me going.
Thank you very much, Imelda. Imelda and Chris both brought up working in high school settings versus college. And I'll say my personal experience, I could have dealt with the high school experience if not for the parents. That's why I chose to work in higher education. Parents are what pushed me out. Alrighty, Maral, next up.
So I've been affiliated with the university about 15 years, 20 years in higher education, and about 13 months out of that 15 years, I actually left higher education and went on to work for Valley Children's Healthcare. The hospital itself is a nonprofit, but it's more of the business model that you would see, the private model. So, and I could tell you, I came back for many reasons. One of the reasons was Chris mentioned is this altruistic reasons of helping our community and not looking for that profit margin was a big one. Along with, I missed my holiday time. Anastasia was talking about the vacation where a day where like right after Christmas Day, I had to go back to work. Like, what is this? It just does not make sense. But along those lines, also the sake of doing our job for learning and creating and developing, higher education is amazing because we are learning and growing as individuals, as employees of this university, while we are supporting individuals. That does not happen in many institutions, especially for private, industry businesses, because they are looking for those profit margins and they need to, make a living based on those profit margins. Whereas in a university and higher education, we are doing things for very many different reasons. So I have missed just being part of education. So when I came back, it was just this like welcoming home. To me, I came back home. So higher education, I think, if you look at other paths, and I'm not, saying you don't go into business or don't go into private work, of course do what is relevant to you, what you feel like, but your passion is important. And in higher education, I think you can pivot. You can see from all of us, from one degree to another, one career to another, and really grow and develop. And I think that's very important. It does not happen in every institution, I think. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maral. Alexis.
So I actually have perspective on private industry, like Maral was talking about. When I first graduated in 2019, I actually started full-time before I graduated in January. And I went to a private agency. Like most marketing folks kind of end up either going for, a singular company that you're working for, or you're working at an agency where you're balancing a lot of different client needs. And so that kind of profit margin feels like more of a priority a lot of the times. And I think it's just because you get lost in the translation. You're always thinking about, well, how can I do better here? Reach more people here. And so you kind of get lost in the jumble. And I think one of the reasons why, I benefited from both that experience and being in higher education here is that a lot of the work and a lot of the things we have to remind ourselves are, and at least in marketing and PR, is that you're doing it for the client. And so you got to believe in the companies and the people that you work with, or the missions of those companies, in order to kind of feel fulfilled. That kind of taps more into that altruism that we were talking about earlier. And so agency life wasn't for me, just because I felt like there wasn't that deeper connection of doing something for the greater good past myself and maybe past the companies that I was working with, which isn't necessarily bad, because I know that there are marketing folks who love agency life because it's one thing to the next and there's things going on. But for me, I needed maybe to focus more on one solid entity. And for me, that's the Wet Center. And it aligns a lot with some of the goals that I have personally. So we work with a lot of companies that are reaching a more sustainable future and, solving the problems that farmers are experiencing, or solving the problems that, our greater community are experiencing with water, energy, and ag. And so for me, the benefit of working in higher education is not only that I get to kind of fit into that I'm making a difference beyond myself. I'm making these ventures learn about maybe their technology and how they can improve, but also I'm helping maybe a farmer down the road who's been struggling with his citrus orchards because it's been freezing and he's lost so much of his crop, which is super important to the lifelong process that is being a farmer. And so for me, the benefits, just not only having that as part of the initiative, at least with what I do personally for work, but also being able to include students in that process as well, which I know a lot of us have talked about already, but allowing students to also get excited about how they're helping not only our center, but helping the future of ag in many cases. And so for me, I'm inspired by our community at Fresno State, not only our students, but our staff and faculty and the research and efforts that they're doing along the lines of, helping meet the need across the board. And so for those reasons alone, just seeing how I can be inspired by students, because I have hired quite a few in my time. I actually started in February of 2020, worked 2 weeks and got sent home. So Anastasia, I'm a little different than you. I've not seen anybody. And so that was a huge change, at least for me, because I thought I was going to be able to see these students and interact with them and these companies. And now, really my only communication is online, but seeing their ideas, as a newer generation of how we can connect with these ventures or connect with farmers or connect with just the general community about how we can, create a more sustainable future for ourselves. I mean, California alone is under a watchful eye just with our water alone. So for us, I mean, it's just great to see and experience just some of the things that students bring to the table, and then implement those ideas in a lot of the work that I do. So very altruistic. I think there's an extra feeling of working in higher education that, you're impacting more than just getting something done for the week. You're touching a lot more people than maybe we realize, or we do realize it. And, that feels good to just wish, work with a student for a year and then they're off on their own and making just as big of a difference. So.
Thank you, Alexis. And then to round us out, Keela.
Yeah, so I think everyone's kind of touched base of working in higher ed and their different positions. But yeah, I think it's super cool. I think for me specifically in the department that I work for, it's super cool to see students get admitted into the university, especially I don't know, local students that are first-time freshmen applying or undergrad, just because for them, it's just that sense of pride of coming to Fresno State. And for many of the students that are in our population are first generation. So they get really excited at the thought of coming to Fresno State. And I'm thankful that I work in a department that is super cool in that aspect of admitting students to come to Fresno State. But yeah, I was also at the community college for a little bit. And I think Chris had mentioned it in the chat, but if you're tenured, you get summers off, winter breaks off, you get that spring break off. So that's just one of the cool perks of working in higher ed, specifically at the community college. But yeah, I think higher ed has endless amount of opportunities and doors through different departments and different positions. And yeah, specifically at Fresno State, I think it's just the morale of being here, and yeah, that's what makes it really cool about working in higher ed.
Perfect. Thank you, Keela, and thank you again, everyone, for sharing your experiences. We're rounding out here, closing to the end of our webinar. We do have one last question, and it's going to be kind of a lightning round. We've all answered this question already, but I want to see what other kind of answers that we can get. So the last question that we have is, what advice would you give to students who are curious about working in higher education? And you can't say get an on-campus job because everybody said that already. I think we definitely know getting involved on campus as a student, whether in a student assistant position or even just student involvement, getting involved in clubs, associated students and other organizations. That's a great way for you to get your foot in the door in higher education. What other pieces of advice would we give to students who want to learn more or are curious about pursuing careers in this pathway? And Keela, we're going to start off with you.
Yeah, I think for me, just maybe just asking questions. I feel like everyone, at least at Fresno State, is very friendly and approachable and is always eager to help for the most part with any questions and stuff that you have. So I think a key factor is maybe asking questions. And yeah, I think that's for me.
Did I stump you because I said you can't say get a student job?
Oh,
Maral, if you want to
I'm
jump in.
sorry, I don't know if you it froze for a second. So
Oh.
for me, I mean, along with asking those questions, forget about the hiring component, but really come and talk to all of us, and maybe even an internship if you don't want to do a formalized a student assistant position or work position, but something where you during a semester want to maybe work on a project. We have a lot of project-based learning that happens at Fresno State. So you want to maybe perhaps match that up for your units or your courses, right? And maybe come and do a quick internship or do a project for us. So and learn ins and outs, because for higher education, anybody in accounting can have a job in here, anybody in physical education, I mean, you have so many positions even in our health center. We have nurses, nurse assistants, they're hired and onboarded, and it's a medical center. So if you're interested, but you want to stay in the higher education capacity, I would highly encourage you, look for a class. Maybe you could do pair up and learn, because you can truly see what you like and what you dislike. And this is something you want to do. And ask those questions. I agree. Ask many questions. And I always say there are no stupid questions, and the unanswered questions and asked questions are the ones that are not relevant. So please ask those questions, and we are all have open doors, and contacts us, and Tyler has all of our information too, and come and see us if you are interested in any of these positions.
Thank you, Maral. Alexis, did you have something that you wanted to add?
Sure. I know sometimes it can feel overwhelming, especially if like you're in a different major and you're interested, but you're not really wanting to like jump in both feet into the pond. So a lot of ways that you can kind of at least see what maybe a position would be like, internship, student assistant, is just by networking. And I know that there's a lot of like career fairs that are incredibly helpful in that sense. And some of those career fairs are outside companies, but a lot of the times you'll see a lot of Fresno State staff and faculty there as well. And so that might feel like a little bit less of pressure instead of having to walk into a building and be like, actually, I really want to know about this, this, and this. So career fairs in particular, I think would be a great start for students, because one, everybody's there asking pretty much the same questions, so it's less overwhelming. But honestly, just connecting on medias as well. I see a lot of people and students too utilizing platforms like LinkedIn. And so if you see someone that's doing work that you're semi-interested in, there's always the message feature, which again, can feel informal, but is less intimidating, because I think a lot of the times people might hold back because, it's overwhelming. This is new. I don't want to sound stupid, which is never the case. But it's just an opportunity, I think, especially as students, is to network and just get out there. And part of that is clubs and organizations, like you said, Tyler. Part of that is, student assistant jobs where you just jump in and you work there and hopefully you end up liking it. But a lot of the times it's just getting to know people and just asking around. Because odds are staff, faculty, there's somebody that they can connect you to that would know an answer to the question that you have.
Thank you, Alexis. And yes, look at this beautiful, wonderful network we have just in this room right now. Alexis brought up career fairs, and now we're going to go over to Imelda.
Okay, yes, I have a career fair next week. It is Wednesday, February 23rd from noon to 4 p.m. in the Satellite Student Union. And it's for anyone who is interested in the food, agriculture, natural resources, industries, and other related industries. Water technology, all that good stuff. But I did want to add that it is very important to have a solid resume and a solid cover letter. And you need to go to the Career Center, because there's always some improvement that can be made. Even my resume, I always have tweaked it for new positions that I have applied for. So that's what's going to get you the interview. So definitely visit Tyler or anyone else at the Career Center to get your resume and cover letter reviewed. And then what else was I gonna say? I lost my train of thought, but yeah, cover letter, resume. If I remember, I'll jump back in. I did have another.
Thank you, Imelda. And I know we're running really, really close to time. Chris and Anastasia, we are going to get to you. And then Erica and Jagdev, you've hung out the longest. If you have any questions that we haven't addressed yet, feel free to put them in the chat while we just finish up with these last comments, okay? And we're going to go Chris Dale.
Yep. Sorry, I'm allergic to brevity, but I'll try. But I have to get one anecdote out there. So my advice would really just be that it's not too late and everything you do has value. I used to work with criminology students a lot, and we would get students who come in after their internship as law enforcement students who would come and have an honest to God existential crisis about how they didn't want to do law enforcement anymore. They'd wasted all their time. And we would take a step back and look, what's your degree with? Yes, it's a law enforcement option, but it's a crim major. Crim also encompasses, victim services, forensic behavioral sciences, corrections. And from there, because grad school, if you're interested in that, is the great equalizer, the great reset. You can go into social work, counseling, master's in public administration, master's in public health. Most of these programs don't require a specific degree. Ironically enough, crim actually does though. But so that's the big thing I always like to tell students, because you see it a lot where students feel like if they didn't start off, they're behind. And you've seen with us, you don't have to change your major along with your interests. You can do things like people have mentioned, get an internship, start applying, start getting experience, add a minor. And the most important part is you have to know why it's important. Don't just add a Spanish minor so you could say, well, looks good on a resume. Know how it's going to benefit you and how it's going to directly do that. And it's going to come out a lot more authentic. You can see my communications minor coming out right now, which I added specifically to help with this type stuff. So, and yeah, reach out to us, use your resources. One of the things that was most gratifying to me when I got hired is a couple of people went, finally. And that for me, that was really emblematic of why I got hired, because I just was around so much that it was, I stuck in people's minds, I guess. But yeah.
Thank you very much, Chris. And then Imelda, network with faculty, staff, and references. Yes, get references. And then lastly, rounding us off again, Anastasia, what's the one piece of advice?
Well, after everything you guys said, that pretty much covers the board, but my advice would be to self-reflect on what your strengths are, what you want to know, and what do you like to do? I mean, like they said, if you're interested in something, find an option, know what your resources are. And actually that was one of my things, was go to the career development centers. How to interview. I don't know if you guys do that, Tyler, how to interview. There's so many people I've learned, they're like, I'm so nervous on Zoom and how to interview people. And I was like, just learn some tools, learn some tips, how to write a resume. That's a really big deal wherever you go, and take that information anywhere, not just in higher education though. So yeah.
Thank you, Anastasia, and thank you to all of our participants. This was an amazing event. I really could not have hoped for anything better. You've shown us that there is no one right way to get here. You've shown us that there are more careers in higher education beyond just academic advising and professors, and that all of our experiences are valuable and valued and add to our strengths working in the higher education setting. Thank you to our participants, very hands-on, very directed information. This recording is going to be live on our YouTube page. Just go to YouTube at Higher Fresno State. I don't really know what else to say. Just thank you all for participating. And we will be forwarding this to all of our students, making sure that it's available. Imelda's career fair is next week. We have the Career Development Center's career fair in March, on March 9th. And yeah, anyone is happy to come see me. Contact the Career Development Center, schedule an appointment for interviewing, resumes, all this fun stuff. We're all here to help. Thank you all so much, and I'll go ahead and stop the recording now.